What we have here is a build that isn't finished yet because I wasn't able to get the proper enchantment for my helmet, and I've got one just right here. It's just that it doesn't have the mods that I wanted, like this one. So it's got the most important thing is minion life and minion damage. So I keep running the labyrinth just to get these enchantment right here, or the other enchantment for the animated weapon, which is the chance to create a copy of the animated weapon. So what I did is that when there comes a boss fight and I will not be able to have a flask or any mobs that I can kill, that my animated weapon can kill, so that will end up 0 animated weapon. So what I did is that I've bought a 6-link CoC chest, and I decided to put another animate weapon skill gems here, and this one's here. So I'm gonna, what I did was I have to self-casted it with the glass shanks from my ethereal knives, which is this one. Leaves 50% fewer lingering blades. So there. Ooh, someone lighting gun. Okay, somebody's gonna. Where did I put it? Can't seem to find where. Ah, this one. Oh, lightning golem. Yeah, I think that was it. Garbage bow player. So, yep. TY. So again, back to the build. As you can see, I don't have my animated guardian here. And every time I used the ethereal knives, which is having a support like spell echo, which make it attack faster or cast faster, I don't know. What I did here is the animated weapon linked to the multi-strike and elemental damage, and a spell, another spell echo just to make it. Oh. There. So right now I have 14 animated weapons already. That's how I keep up with boss fight. And take note that these animated weapons are physical base type. So if I ever encounter a boss fight with elemental resistance, first claimant iron delirium. What was this? Okay, let's just give it to him. Witness 1. How much did? The 4. This one. Akutagawa. Again, back to the build. So this will keep me fighting against bosses which have elemental resistance and chaos resistance. So because these animated weapons are physical based type. And what I did with my there's no weapon, okay, with my Bob here, I have him linked to Minion Live Infernal Legion just to bury the worms right by my side, be able to summon the his own weapon, which is a skill from the chest piece, which will trigger a level 20 animated Guardian's weapon, elemental army. So I gave him the Void Forge, which deals 300% physical damage as a random elemental damage. So I didn't really bother with what element will it use. Right now I'm just focusing on scaling up the damage of my minions, because I don't think that I can kill slayers, or I mean the big bosses right now, and I needed to upgrade my equipments as well, and I needed to change this to the Owl Amulet, which will give me Malevolence, reserves no mana. So I'm currently saving for that amulet, because I don't think I have the choice for going for the haste. Doesn't have mana reserve, because the price was so insane. It's like right now it's about like 20 exalts or 14 exalts. Well, I went for the Malevolence because it's just around 9 exalts. So I think right now I only have 3 exalts, because I was trying to upgrade the other items, like this one. I went for the High Templar, so that I could get a little bit of life and shield, and my boots will have to be changed as well if I can find any better upgrade. And this one I needed to upgrade instead of minion increased movement speed, I would try to find myself minion increased damage. And this one I'm gonna have to try to find a better role for the cursed enemies with elemental weakness on hit. But right now this is the best that I've got. So yeah. So and this one as well, I'm gonna have to upgrade it soon, because the minion increased damage isn't that high, which is only 63, and I was able to do a little bit of cheating for my shield. It turns out this shield will give me 1000%, 1000 elemental ages, which will, as in turn, like elemental resistance at all for my character as well. So that's 1000. It will act like a shield for any elemental damage. And since I wasn't able to acquire myself having these 2 gems right here, I chose to buy the Immortal Coal, which is level 21 max and quality 23. And at that time I wasn't really thinking that my CWDT, or cast when damage taken support, will not be able to support it, because once these Immortal Call gets to level 21, the gem will be level 72, and the CWDT support will not be able to support that, because it will only support up gems up to level 70. So when I bought this, I bought the Immortal Call, which is cheaper because nobody will ever use it. So when I checked the market for the level 21 over 23 with this cast when damage taken, I was surprised that the cost will is around 3 exalt or 1 exalt. So I was shocked. So what I did is I found this shield, which will add +2 to level of sacred gems. So every time when I put this, my cast when damage taken support will become level 22, which will in turn will support up to level 74 gems. So I saved an exalt just because of that. And so I have these molten shell as well to mitigate. And hang on, let's just make sure it isn't okay. So my animated weapon is linked with multi-strike, elemental damage, spell echo, just to make it a little bit faster to cast when there is no mobs around the area. And this awakened minion damage support gem, which I bought 1 exalt, and it's taking forever to level this guy up. I mean this gem up. So I chose the Ruthless word. Although I was thinking of replacing the elemental damage with a melee physical, but right now we just have it that way. And I have here the ethereal knives, which will give me the lingering blade for me to be able to summon this animated weapon manually. And it is linked to spell echo support as well, although I'm still trying to level this one up. And my favorite, flame dash and convocation, just to be able to summon my weapons next to me. And here is a wand that will trigger the spell whenever I use the skill. So I have it precision, since it's an aura, so the wand will not be able to trigger it. It's linked to grace. I mean, it doesn't really need to be linked. The grace, which will be used when I get enough souls. I only use the veil side of this gem. And the flesh offering, I removed the desecrate because most of the time there are curbs around the area when I went mapping, when I want to go mapping. So I think that I only use this when there is no curbs around the area. But yeah, I still have to veil this one later. So that's how. Oh, the passive tree will look like this. Although I just borrowed this gem from a friend. And I have here a Watcher's Eye, which will give me a little bit of energy shield, life, and you have phasing while affected by haste. So this is the reason why my character look like this. If I remove this gem, that's how she looks like. But And then if we put this gem back here, she goes facing. All right. Okay, back to the gem. So I bought this jewel for I think I bought it for around 2x volts, just because I like the facing part. I didn't want to get blackberry by the mobs when there's when the map is full of mobs. And just when I checked the market site, I found this gem. I found this jewel. It will give me facing while affected by haste. So since I'm always affected by haste, Prince, sorry about that. And this will also regenerate my life and energy shields while affected by malevolence. And so since I'm using malevolence too, so that's why. And here are just a couple of minion jewels. This one, I went for the corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you. I think I bought this for around 1 exalt. And yeah, there are a couple of the gems are still needed to be replaced soon, if we can find some more upgrade. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to bump this life. And this one, lethal pride, timeless jewel. So it will give me a little bit of. I don't think this will benefit my build, because I'm not really sure if the minions will be able to give me leech. But I just have it that way because it will give me strength, which will in return will give me a little bit of life. Yeah, I just needed those strengths. And this one, 10 reduce extra damage. I'm not sure. Yep, and those are the builds. So I don't think I can handle T16 yet, but and I don't want to ruin the experience because I'm almost going for level 91. So let's just do a little bit of let's just do a little bit of the lower maps instead. Maybe 30. Dig. Which just go to the veil. Ah, it's all veil pyramid. Ah, I don't have the veil temple, so let's go for the pyramid yet right now. Let's bump it up. And what else do we have? Are we gonna make it? I'm not sure if I can be able to defeat this, but yeah. Alright, that should do it. GG to my experience. But if my character won't be able to handle it, then I think I'm not gonna push it through. But anyway, let's just try it. And let's have some little bit of. Let's not get Brenda's harbingers. Okay. Okay, let's go for the for the div guards. Oh, right, GG. Swap.
now, little nightmare.
What's this? Nah. Oh, there's the boss. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to fight the boss. Go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
I have nothing more to give.
Oof. I'm frozen. I'm frozen. Alright. What's this omelet? Nah. It's nothing. Oh, that was almost. Oh, that was new. Sure, map. Oh, it's another boss. Oh, let's go kill this one. Let's summon some physical. Let's go physical. See, because he's got elemental resistance, so I was trying to summon my physical gems instead, rather than the void forge. I mean, I forgot to tell you that my animated guardian is equipped with the void forge, which is yeah, I think I already told that. So as a way to ooh, why did I go there? Mitigate the elemental resistance bosses, I need to summon some weapons. Go into yourself, and that's how you kill a boss. What's this? So we're not done yet. We're not done yet. We're not done yet. No. Oh, this is one's new. Kimurad. Let's just loot later. I hate maps that has doors. What do we have here? Boot blade. Nope. It's just. Perfect, Kasha. Oh man, not now. Three voices, and the righteous return to ash, and the righteous return to ash, and the righteous return to ash, and the righteous return to ash. Nothing. Ooh. a lovely day. Later, bro. What the heck is he doing? Oh.
Far too much baggage.
I thought it was the Kingmaker. And the righteous. Oh, this one is new. Oh, this one is new as well. Let's check if this is the Kingmaker. Oh, no. So, let's just clean it up later. Come on. I'm not going down yet. To finish this one. Oh man, it's just a gavel.
Far too much baggage.
Come on. Oh, what the heck? What happened to my control? What's this? Oh,
Far too
face
much
breaker. Let's go for the boss. He's an elemental resistant, so we're gonna have to summon our animated weapons. Oh man, see, if I have those normal weapons, the glass shanks, it will tear down the boss with having an elemental resistance. So I find it useful. See, these are useful. Come on, let's just give me more. Oh, come on, man. It's almost
Far too much baggage.
where can you find it? Where are they? Nope, not here. 13 more monsters. Well, are they gonna be able to fill our tanks here? Gavel. Let's just go. Come back later. Where are they? Still got 13 more monsters left. Where is it? This one? Nope. Turn to
Far too much baggage.
ash and the righteous return. Alright, so really hate this. So I'm gonna have to turn it off and just give me some easy. It's over here. Why can't... What the heck? Why can't I upgrade this? Oh man.
The blight is trying to spread.
Yes, we are medium based. Ooh. What the heck?
Let's see what this tower can really do.
Oh, there's too many of them. Good thing there's only one point of entry. Oh man,
Far too
these
much
loots.
baggage.
What's this? Sanctified mana. Okay, let's just grab that one. I think I haven't got this one yet. What's this? How much is this? Ooh. There's some... I think I may need to get back. I've still got 13 monsters left. 13.
Far too much
I wonder
baggage.
how I'll be able to get all these. Find it. Ooh, Bell Orb. Okay, let's just. What's this? Nope. Cooldown. That's traps. Too bad we're not able to get anything useful. 70 health.
Far too much baggage.
So I think we... Oh, there's still more here. How can we fill that one up? Just checking. Stairs. Are there any more monsters here? Simulacrum. No, boom, ba, bum, bum, away. Where are they? Where are they? Still got 3 more
Far
monsters
too
left.
much baggage.
What the heck? No? And the righteous return to ash. Where are they? And the righteous return to ash. Nothing here. So I guess where goes Anna? Alright, let's just... So we're done with Gacha and we're going for these corrupted hearts here. Just throw this away. I wonder what all these is. Mania. Oh, that's cool. But it's What's Veil? Veil gems. Oh, that's cool. Alright. I know this is a face breaker. It's just 600. Turquoise. Ooh. Oh yeah, but anyway, I'll go ahead here. Hey! What you doing? What's this? Give me some exiles, bro. The righteous return to ash. The righteous return to ash. Oof, that's a big one. Allies, okay. What do we have? Chevron. The ring of blades. What's this? What's this? Nope. I need that. Oh, chance. Are there any more monsters around here? More? What's this again? Nope, I don't need that. So, what did he want? Buy a ring of blades, Bridge and pots. I don't think I'm selling it. The righteous return to us. I think this. Yeah, that's our one chaos. Oh, 6. Too bad it's not 4. If it was 4, we're rich. Large. We're just gonna have to drop it. Possessed. Oh. Overflowing reaches and hidden pathways. Phrygian. It's not gold. Since we are going inside Xana's map, we need to drop all these. So that way we can bring. Six passive skill. This is a medium. It's too weak. Ooh, I like the sound. Laviana. It's not fully rolled. You still have no. Yeah. Prime 610. Oh. I hope we'll not get disconnected. Otherwise, we're gonna lose all of these.
I need your help checking and securing a map.
Nope. 55. 64 and tower. Lava chamber. 65, 64. Thing is, I really hate temporal chain. Still here.
Even among the erratic swarms of fiends, I've accidentally stumbled across an oddity. By the way,
Why is my... Oh, it's only one portal. So let's make it useful. Where do we go? I really hate maps that has doors. Oh no! Oh no! Damn it!
They will turn you into red milk.
Oh crap! Chaos. Too bad. I really hate chaos damage. And that was it. Really need to upgrade it. Too bad there's only one portal to that map. But I really hate that. Thing is, it's better that my character will die first rather than the guardian, because if my guardian dies, then I'm gonna lose big, because it's been equipped with the magistrate crown, which is a little bit costly. Still got
Far too much baggage.
Facebreaker. I think this is the part where we need to nothing. Nope. 45. Nope. We're keeping these gems for the veil. Just gonna have to dump all these here. That is so nice. Probably we can sell this for like a chaos. Let's just dump these. Oh, this one's nice. Plus health. I know. Oh. Oh. Delve. And we're gonna put these here in the jeweler section. And I think kind of poor. So we're here. Oof. What is this here? .34 fire resistance. 0.7. Nah.
Welcome.
Nobody will buy that. Too bad we were not able to finish the Xana's mission. I was just level 13. I don't know why. This guy right here is I want
Far
chaos.
too much baggage.
It's just I don't know where is that 12 monsters. Oh, there's a chaos here. Far too much baggage.
Far too much baggage.
Oh, yeah, really, we're kind of full. So we're going back again.
What is going on?
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's still enough. Tornado shot. Quickly. I'm not sure if we are still gonna find that 3 monsters
Far
left.
too much baggage.
Ooh, that's. Where was it? Here. I hope it's a fully rolled. Oh man, we're full again. From Colonel Mitz. What the heck? We're just gonna. Ooh la la, we don't have any space left.
Get out.
Ooh. No, it's not. Yeah. Let's go back again. And dump all these here. Ooh, it's full already. Oh man. Oh crap, it's full. Where do we put this? Woohoo. Gonna have to clean it up later. This one's here. Let's just put that one there and secure these gems. We don't need
Welcome.
this. I'm just gonna clean it later. And yeah, we're gonna have to find the remaining monsters. I mean, that's 13 monsters there, and it's almost gonna fill those meters up. I'm not sure where are they. Let's check here. Oh, we almost forgot the gavel. I'm gonna have to sweep the entire map again. There's one here.
You can't get up.
There's nothing here.
Switch and go right here.
Oh,
Stand on the switch. Stand on the switch. Get right here.
what are they? Oh, there you go.
Stand on the switch. Stand on the switch.
There you go. It didn't feel. Oh, damn. There's 0 monsters and we still not able to fill these ones. We still have any monsters here, but happened?
Far too much baggage.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Welcome. Hello.
Unfortunately, we were not able to finish the Diana's mission, but that's fine. Oof. I'll bring 10 of these and 10 of these. On chaos recipe 1, 2. We got just leave it there. Anyway. And belt.
Let me tell you.
Belt. Oh, here. And 2 chaos. That's how we do. That's how we create currency. I mean, that's how we make currency.
Welcome.
Welcome. What's this? Oh, it's not chaos, but that's fine. Just take out one more.
Welcome.
Oh, it's not chaos. It's fine. We're doing a mini game of arranging our stuff. There you go. Just sell it later. I'm not sure how much is it, but
This is so boring. I need to leave.
150. It's not max, so we're just gonna sell it for a chaos. Cardinal meats. I think this is full as well. Just put it here. They're selling it for. We're just gonna sell it for 5 chaos. Let's go mid. I don't know where else we go. Crimson Temple, I don't have the map yet. Maps. I only got 2 T16 map, which is the Colosseum and Overgrown Shrine. Don't really want to mess up with my experience right now, so I'm just gonna play safe. They're all done. Okay, so let's try to play the T12 so that we'll be able to get these maps here. Oh, I think I've already finished that. Yeah, I think I already finished all of it. Oh, city square.
Wait, am I going to join Beast?
Need a map?
Does he have the city square? Arsenal, Plaza, and nope. Sepulchre. I think I already had a Sepulchre. Okay. Oh, Atlas only was complete. Primordial. I think we, yeah, gonna have to play this, hoping that that map will drop. Player resistance, bled cold. Okay, that's fine. 83%, that's fine as well. We're gonna want more division cards. Let's see if we're just gonna bring these and pop some strong boxes just so we can unlock our challenges. Let's bring Einar. I think that's all. Feeding frenzy, right?
Forsaken monsters.
Oh! I saw the egg! Zombie rush.
Let's pop some worms. Oh man, I hate this map.
Oh, the weary traveler draws close to the end of its life.
Oh, he's got a metamorph. What's this?
Bring the beast in my sights, exile. We will be best friends, beast, until we slaughter you.
Sorry for that kid. Kid is too noisy. But it's fine. Any dad will understand. Oh man. Let's go here. That's a chaos damage. Oh, I really hate that chaos damage here. It's just that I need to update my gears. Damn it, I really don't want to mess up with the experience right now. Too bad. That's too bad. Oh, okay. That's what? Ah. Right. I think that's the reason why. Just clean this one. Be smart first before I go inside. Why don't you give me exalt? Ooh, it's we really need to be careful once we go inside that map. We don't want to mess up with the experience because we've been stuck at level 90 for like for I think a week already or 2 weeks, and we've been running the labyrinth for almost a month. We still not able to get our needed enchantments, so Blade Fall. Go kill them. Oof. What the heck? That's so scary. You don't want to mess up with the experience, bro. Ah, it's not chaos. I mean, it's not Axel. It's... Give me Axel. I don't want to go in. I didn't want to. He died. Didn't really want to die because I don't want to mess up with the experience. Because I have 70% already, and I don't want to go back to 0 if I die. You hunt well. There's a chest. And I'm just trying to be careful because of these mobs on here. I think they're dealing chaos damage, which... Oh, what the heck? Come on.
Yep, I died. No, I need to beat this round again. No!
Ooh.
I need to beat this round.
That's just great.
There's no checkpoint. I'm not just.
Did we kill it? Yeah. And it's a boss.
The red one is just a oh, whoops. Why did I do that?
You have been captured.
Far too much baggage.
You will be a survivor, or you will be food.
Or I will be food.
Ooh, that was almost. Good thing we got the immortal. Oh, what was that? Scato man. And we got. Nope. Alright. Oh, it's not done yet. What's that? All of it.
Far too much baggage.
Yeah. Keep us nothing. Oh, this one's nice. Oh, too bad it's only got 3 sockets. We don't want to.
There are no more worthy beasts nearby. So, I now will go beat the ones we caught.
What's this? Too bad. How do we? resist. So then I'm gonna go ahead with the animated weapon.
A name remembered all this time. Their will stolen by a vengeful spirit.
If you're an elemental resistant, then those weapons will tear you down.
Sleep now, little nightmare.
I found this.
What do you have? Ooh la la,
Far
what's
too much
this?
baggage.
This is new. Greed's embrace. What the heck is this?
Where is the phone?
Negative fire, gold, negative lightning. What? Strength. I don't really know what's the benefit of these armor. Oh, it's like Pirandas.
Okay.
Crude bow.
Oh no, it's not.
Far too much baggage.
That is one chaos, bro. I think this is one chaos. I think this is the. No, it's just one chaos. We got 73%. There's only 3% added to our experience just by running that map. We're just gonna sell these later. I've got tarnished. Nah. How much? What's this? Mana cost. I think that's important. So that should have a price on it.
Hello.
Oof. Green night. What's the? Oh, why?
I can't afford that. I can't afford it. Okay.
So maybe if we can upgrade our gears, but we don't have the currency at the moment, so
There must have
I was just gonna have to settle with these.
egg somewhere.
Far too much baggage.
I don't think I still need this. Yeah, I think I still need that. This one. just going for the chaos recipe because we badly need the currency at the moment.
Let me tell your future.
Kid is playing Roblox. So. What else do we have? Here. This one. Nope. This one. This one. Nope. This one. Nope. I'm just gonna get the. Where is it? I know.
Far too much baggage.
Oh, it doesn't fit. We really need currency.
No. Give me some more money.
I'm just gonna sell it later. Or I can sell it now so that you will get a free space.
Welcome.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have 2 chaos. Let's see. Easy way.
One is out.
1, 2, 3.
Let me tell your future.
Future. 2 chaos again. Oof. We don't have it. We don't have. Okay. We're still gonna have to do some more mapping. Let's go DIJINN. Castle Ruins. Pump it up. Chill ground. I really hate this. Poison on heat. No. We don't want poison on heat right now. Ooh. Equilibrium. Elemental.
If we don't which one, and then it's back.
Monster actually gonna be.
Stop at round 3. Okay. We're on round 1.
Okay, round 1.
If one balloon just
We don't want the map at the moment.
3 balloons, you fail.
Okay, go. Fly it up.
Be stunned. That's just fine. Just go for the easier map.
One balloon just fell on the floor. That's fine.
Easier mod.
Okay, fly it up.
Just for the sake of our.
Oh no! One down.
I catch it.
Oh, the red is down.
Harbor. Let's go for the harbor.
Oh, the pig is down.
They're so noisy.
Go green. Oh no! Oh, round 1 is done. Let's go for round 2.
Kid and wife is playing balloon.
No, it's round 2 now. Round.
My game.
Come on.
It's my game.
Yeah, your game. You said it's.
We need to start again, okay?
Yeah. You said once
Boring as
it's also 3 down, it means it's game over. So round 2. Go.
God, you failed. When you failed, we need to start again.
move to round 2.
One, that's the thing.
For how long? Oh no, it's round 2 now. No, there's no time.
In 15 minutes. 5 and
5 and 0 is so long. It's just, if you
Gonna
say
mute
5
it.
to
There you are, ready to revisit the past. The more you kill, the more you change my map, and the closer we get to finding the temple in the present day. Let's have a look at the layout. It's time. Good job, Exile.
So as you can see, the build needs to bump the damage because I wasn't able to finish the excursion. So thermography, workshop, surveyor.
And the closer we get to finding the temple
I think
in
we
the present day.
need to go to the...
Every incursion. Time to go. Hello. Bye.
That's bad damage. Give me the key. Seriously, we don't have the key. Oh, what?
Good job, Exile.
Oh crap! I really need to have damage.
Just in time.
So this goes surveyor.
The more you kill,
Bombs.
the more you change my map. And the closer we get to finding the temple in the present day. Every incursion
Architect.
needs proper preparations.
I think we go here. Tubular. Alright.
Time to go.
Come on. There's some more worms.
Good job, Exile.
I can't do it. I'm not able to finish it. So damage. We needed to add more damage to the minions. Or I'm not really sure is it because of the void forge which is not consistent? I'm not really sure. If I get
Sounds like Takati's plants are growing.
maybe if we get more currency then we can try changing the weapon. Because right now most annoying is I'm not dealing much damage. That is why. So I'm not able to finish the excursion. Yeah, whatever it is. It's only 3 monsters left. Oh. So Miginord. I'm not sure how much is a Miginord. Why is it selling for 30? This is just one chaos. No, this guy's selling it for 30. Level 83. Yeah. we're just gonna sell it for 1 chaos. Eight all resistant.
Welcome.
Welcome. Nope. Seriously. Which one? Which map was that? City Square. Oh yeah. We need to go Nico.
Oh, I heard something.
How are we doing with our delving? Oh, we should go here. I haven't really got this one yet. There's one more here. Gold, but I'm not really interested in gold. Just want to get some more azurite. We should go towards this area. It's not a lot. It's gonna 3 bit. Yeah, we should go here. Hoping nobody will PM us. Why is it lagging? Why am I lagging? I think I'm gonna get disconnected. Oh crap. Oh, that's right. Ooh, why am I lagging?
I have nothing more to give.
Ivory ball. Oh, that's 5 link. gonna get all this scroll. Are we going there? Yeah, we just go there. Where was it? I don't know why it's lagging at the moment. Okay. Let's go down here. What's this? Oh, it's nice, but it's not Link.
I have nothing more to give.
Really hate when that happens.
Far too much baggage.
The reason I chose to delve at the moment is because I didn't want to mess up with my experience. My experience bar is, I think it's already around 80%, and if I go mapping I might die. So I'll just go delving for a bit. We're already at 90%. We didn't really want to die. What's this? No. Despair. Oh, this one's nice. Hoping there's an exalt here. Ooh. Oh, we're going the wrong way. It's kind of a bit far, but yeah, I'm just kind of hoping there's an exalt. I really want that amulet already. Malevolence or haste reserves no mana. I really want that amulet. It's gonna help us a lot. But I just don't have enough exalt yet. If we can just get can just earn 10 exalts maybe, probably we can get the malevolence instead. Again. Oh, there's okay. Oh, that's a gonna have to check that. That's a bit far. And there is no exalt. What the heck? So we're gonna have to go back that area. And let's just check that area. Only caves are open. There's nothing. Right. We'll go back there. Not there. It's some kind of around here. This one, I guess. Yeah.
Far too much baggage.
Oh man. Nothing else. Not here. Nothing.
Far too much baggage.
Nothing. I think I already sold that.
Thought I heard something.
Thought I heard something. Oh, we got 2 chaos over there. Unfortunately, it doesn't have. How about this one? 81 life, dexterity, nothing much. And maybe we can sell this for later. Driftwood. No. I'm quite busy here. 18 life now. Nope. Maybe these can get something out of it. No.
Welcome.
Welcome. Where were we? Rock Baker, that's a chaos. These ones look tasty. Let's check it out. What the heck? Oh, forgot. No. Forgotten loot. Nothing.
I have nothing more to give.
Crustacean. Nothing useful. This one? Nope. Was that all of it? Let's go this one first. We got him. Oop.
Far too much baggage.
Kill this. Oh wait, nope. And this one. Enlightened gem.
Your torment is over.
Over here. So what do we have? Ooh,
Far too much baggage.
some worthless. Ooh, damn it. At least we can sell this for a veil orb instead. gonna be fun.
I have nothing more to give.
Was that all of it? And there is nothing worth something. We're gonna go here. We're gonna check this one out. Oof.
Far too much baggage.
Oh man, I hate this.
I have nothing more to give. Far too much baggage. Far too much baggage.
And we only get seriously, that's all we get. Nothing more, nothing less. I thought we were gonna get some big Oh, this one's nice. Abyssal. Oh, I like that. How can we go there? Probably this part here.
Oh, it's right there.
Alright.
Yay, the ship. Let me
I
get
should be able to go there via this route. I'm not really sure yet, but yeah, we'll try. If not, then we'll go the other route. Wrong way.
Far too much baggage. I have nothing more to give. Far too much baggage.
It's a mine.
Yeah, I guess we can go there. Oh, wrong way! Wrong way! Oh, that's fine. It's not that far anyway. God, no. Why is... What the heck? No. So I'm gonna go... Right. After this one. Oh, I level up. I got level up already. So after this one, I'm just gonna take a break and eat the dinner. Because there was a wife will get angry.
What the heck? Stop! Stop! Get away!
I have nothing more to give.
Almost done. And that was all the way for tonight.
Far too much baggage.
Gonna have to take a break. It's dinner time. Alright, thank you and